Quick question to all my dear viewers out there. Does anybody know how to make a proper intro? I'd like to hire somebody who can take a those special intros that game systems and streaming services have. The Netflix da-dan, and the red letters appear through a white wall and then they hit the viewer and disappear. I'd like to hire somebody to make an intro for me. So if you know anyone, please let me know immediately. Now, on to the latest Dantix video, the real problem, called "The Numbers Explain Why Andromeda Failed." Please give him a like on his side, and please hit the like button on my side as well. We both need it. Now, the numbers. Mason, what are the numbers? What do they mean, Mason? All right, so let's find out what he got to say.
It takes 10 whole minutes in Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh, good fucking gravy. You took me by surprise. I completely forgot how ugly you are, Dantix. Good gravy. Too bad you're not a handsome guy like me. Anyway, please do the Shepard plays videos again, please. Come on, you haven't done them in a long time. Sorry about the interruption. Anyway, but you did take me by surprise. So anyway.
It takes 10 whole minutes in Mass Effect Andromeda before you're even allowed to move. Then a rushed 30 minutes before you're allowed to even fire your weapon. Compare that with Mass Effect 1's under 13 minutes, even...
Let's see, 13 minutes. Wow, I didn't realize it was that bad. But to be fair, I do care more about story than gameplay. I care more about story than combat. I mean, that's what got Mass Effect sold in the first place, was the fact that story kept people glued. And I mean, Mass Effect 1 has really lousy combat. Everybody hates it, myself included. But the story was just so gripping. I had to hold on. Anyway, sorry about that interruption.
You're allowed to even fire your weapon. Compare that with Mass Effect 1's under 13 minutes, even if you take your time talking to Jenkins, under 10 minutes for Mass Effect 2, and under 8 minutes for Mass Effect 3. There's no denying that Mass Effect Andromeda was not as successful as the original trilogy.
Hold on. Mass Effect 3 only taking 8 minutes. That's just because Mass Effect 3 made the super stupid mistake of focusing almost entirely on combat. Stories brushed aside, your choices are butchered, and hell, there are whole videos already made on that. A few videos that were lost because the accounts got taken down or were destroyed, and I managed to salvage a few of them myself. But yeah, Mass Effect 3, cutting straight to combat, not necessarily a good thing. Anyway. Oh, and, oh crap, I talk so fast I lose my train of thought. We definitely need to do a live podcast, so maybe you could remind me what I was talking about. Live chat, perhaps. Anyway.
Even if you take your time talking to Jenkins, under 10 minutes for Mass Effect 2, and under 8 minutes for Mass Effect 3.
Oh, now I remember. Yeah. Andromeda, I'm dealing with an idiot. I'm controlling an idiot, and I can't stand controlling an idiot. Commander Shepard knows why we are taking guns on our planetary visit, because you never know what we're going to encounter. Ryder, on the other hand, is a naive idiot who questions Sam's wisdom when he points out that he should arm himself before he goes planetside for the first time, because we honestly do not know what we're going to encounter. Anyway.
I'm talking to Jenkins, under 10 minutes for Mass Effect 2, and under 8 minutes for Mass Effect 3. There's no denying that Mass Effect Andromeda was not as successful as the original trilogy, and many have their reasons as to why.
Yeah, the wooden voice acting, the really talentless, I mean, except for Clancy Brown, I don't know any of the names in the credits, and I don't like them. They don't sound talented at all. Bad graphics, woke propaganda, everybody looks like a token checkbox. Ugh, disgusting.
It was not as successful as the original trilogy, and
Sean.
Many have their reasons as to why, but I'm here to tell you that there's another, bigger killer of joy. The real crime of Andromeda was the awful pacing, and through the magic of math, we're going to prove it. So why does it take so long for Andromeda to let you have control over your character, where each progressive title in the trilogy cuts back that time? It's like the devs forgot the lesson.
Okay, time to assume direct control. Like, what do you mean? Start controlling the character, getting past the whole game intro? Which part do you mean?
Each progressive title in the trilogy cuts back that time. It's like the devs forgot the lessons they seem to have learned prior. That in order for a player to connect with their character, you need to give them the opportunity to project into that character as soon as possible. So what I've done is timed each of the titles by letting the cinematics play out and talking to each character we can talk to in order to get an accurate representation of the games. You'll be surprised what we find. So going back, it takes Andromeda around 10 minutes to hand you the keys to your own character after
Okay, now I understand. Sorry about that.
back, it takes Andromeda around 10 minutes to hand you the keys to your own character after the hour or so you may have already spent at character creation. The problem is, at this point, the game has actually...
To be fair, part of the reason why we're delayed so much...
Hour or so you...
Yeah, part of the reason why we're delayed so much is because we're desperately trying to make our character look attractive. We're going through unattractive versus another ugly and another ugly option. We're going through a million different ugly options before we can finally make a character look somewhat satisfying. So that does put a delay on it. Whereas the first game gave us a default character that was so attractive, we decided, you know what? We don't have to change this guy at all. He's a handsome son of a bitch. Or the girl, default Jane, the one that Mass Effect 3 invented, she's not a bad looker at all. That's why... Another reason why I'm stuttering. Character customization was a lot faster than the previous games.
May have already spent at character creation. The problem is, at this point, the game has actually explained nothing essential. You could have easily taken control of your character prior to all of this information. There was no reason to bloat out the start.
The selection process saw the Andromeda Initiative evaluate thousands of potential habitable planets within the galaxy.
To be fair, Mass Effect 3 made it, like Mass Effect 1 and to a degree 2, they were written by the first team. They went the extra mile to make you feel like you and Commander Shepard were one and the same. Then a completely different party took over production of the third game. They completely hijacked Shepard's character and made him less likable than he was before. And they claimed that Shepard was never your character, that he was always somebody else's character, and you were only, making slightly different choices for him, and that's complete horseshit. In reality, he was supposed to be our character, and Mass Effect 3 took him away. And when Andromeda was being made by a completely different team that made the other three, they weren't even trying to hide the fact that Scott or Sarah is not you. They are a naive, liberal arts college degree idiot that you have a little bit of control over. But, Scott, I'm not impressed with Scott. Instead of the man's man that Shepard was, he's a soy boy who drinks estrogen-laced lattes while reading Cosmopolitan magazine at a coffee shop. So, yeah. And the fact that it takes so long for you to control him is because they're showing you who he is before you take control, because he's not you.
Galaxy.
You're not allowed to be mean when playing Scott.
In comparison, it takes under 4 minutes for Mass Effect 1 to give you control. That's after it takes its time with epic music.
Epic indeed. Oh, I was in love with this music before I even started playing, because this music, oh man, I knew I was in for a rare treat. I wish I could go back to the day when I had never played Mass Effect before, never seen or heard of it before, and just started playing for the first time.
4 minutes for Mass Effect 1 to give you control. That's after it takes its time with epic music.
The Arcturus Prime relay is in range. Initiating transmission sequence.
Commander?
We are connected. Calculating transit mass and destination. The relay is hot, acquiring approach vector. All stations secure for transit.
It introduces a new universe that lets you talk to your crew. Mass Effect 1 doesn't try to explain everything up front. Instead, it focuses on your character and lets the lore fall into place around you. You don't know why you're on a ship looking out a window, you don't know what your mission is and why there's an alien with you. Brilliantly, the writers thought, hey, the player doesn't know what's happening and neither does Shepard. So we'll learn what we need to know together by asking questions and seeing it all play out organically. A lot of what you learn is introduced naturally at your own pace. A huge example is exploring the Citadel. Andromeda handles things very differently. The Citadel 2.0 in Andromeda doesn't act as a hub to learn more.
No, the Citadel in Andromeda, it's not worthy of being called a Citadel 2.0. It's a diet Citadel at best, or a Citadel Zero. Zero sugar. There's no flavor to it. It feels bland by comparison. Or I'm not sure which adjective I'm looking for, but the feeling is not there.
Seeing it all play out organically. A lot of what you learn is introduced naturally at your own pace. A huge example is exploring the Citadel. Andromeda handles things very differently. The Citadel 2.0 in Andromeda doesn't act as a hub to learn more. In fact, the first time you arrive, over an hour and 15 minutes later, the lore is not handed to you organically and more questions are raised than answers are given. From smaller ones like how a Krogan female was a lead engineer on a project far more advanced than any of their scientists could handle.
And believe me, I love seeing a female Krogan outside of that stupid burqa that the third game puts them in. Completely unnecessary, uncalled for, and frankly it feels super lazy. You just put a male body inside the burqa and say, hey, that's a female. No, it's not. But yeah, the fact that here's one in a position of power in a society that has not had a female in power in over 1,000 years, it honestly does feel, it is a giant retcon. But then again, all of Andromeda is written by feminist quacks and their rainbow allies. So, yeah.
Are raised than answers are given. From smaller ones like how a Krogan female was a lead engineer on a project far more advanced than any of their scientists could handle, to why exactly the place is falling apart so badly without you. You don't walk around discovering things at your own pace. No, the game takes player agency away from you again and spews information at you like it's a villain monologuing while you're tied up and forced to listen.
A little gift to our people from the Solarians thousands of years ago. That sterility virus they infected us.
Worse, Andromeda hands out most of its lore through codexes, something the original trilogy had but used in a supporting role. You click through and listen to the brilliantly voice-acted codex entries while sipping your coffee in order to find out more about a theme you were just introduced to.
When the Solarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel. 50,000 years ago, the Protheans were the only spacefaring species in the galaxy.
Hey, wait, I thought the picture that they used... I only played the original. I've not played the remastered yet. I thought the original showed the the statue where a guy's sitting on a pillar or a throne, and there's giant tentacles coming out of his face or something like that. It was something grotesque. But man, oh howdy, this brings back memories. Spending hours and hours just listening to that guy's voice. The teacher I wish I had. The universe I wish I lived in. Oh man, you know what? A universe is well created when you wish you could live in it instead of reality. Avatar: The Last Airbender, James Cameron's Avatar, and this, Mass Effect. I would love to live in any of those universes. Not in the garbage sequels, mind you. Not in the garbage sequels. So, anyway, sorry.
Entries while sipping your coffee in order to find out more about a theme you were just introduced to.
When the Solarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel. 50,000 years ago, the Protheans were the only spacefaring species in the galaxy.
In Andromeda, it's the primary method of learning anything. You only realize how brilliantly information was drip-fed in the trilogy when you compare it to a game that doesn't do it. The pacing of Andromeda is off not just for how long it takes to start anything meaningful, it's also off for how information is presented. The game stumbles around and gives you over 5 minutes of explanation as to what the Andromeda Initiative is before your character is even shown.
But today, whatever our reasons, we take the first steps toward a new future for humanity.
Compare that to Mass Effect 1, wherein your character is mentioned immediately after character creation.
Well, what about Shepard?
and only a short paragraph is presented to lead into the title of the game. Keep in mind, there's a lot more to explain in Mass Effect 1. You have dozens of new aliens, wars, history, new areas, and much more. Andromeda doesn't need to explain any of this because they're charting a completely unknown galaxy, or sector of that galaxy rather, yet only the trilogy shows restraint. Now here's my idea of an appropriate start. It would be your character waking up from cryo right after character creation to something having gone wrong. You need to walk around, fight some rebels, read a few bits of information as notes around the ship, and then you get an explanation as to what is going on and why you were woken up early after reaching the captain. It would be then that you meet your dad, hit the Scourge, and go down to your first planet. That would present you with...
I do think I remember some of the Andromeda marketing saying, and sorry about the interruption. I think I do remember some of the Andromeda marketing telling us that the trilogy revolved around Shepard, especially, or at least the first two games did, and Andromeda would be a game where we would have to be prepared to not have everything revolve around us. That we would be just a small cog in a bigger machine, and how I don't know, it felt like bullshit.
Going on and why you were woken up.
And that explains the super long monologues where you aren't even relevant at all.
The ship, and then you get an explanation as to what is going on and why you were woken up early after reaching the captain. It would be then that you meet your dad, hit the Scourge, and go down to your first planet. That would present you with all the information that you need to get hooked, but not have so damn much of a new player's time sitting and
twiddling their thumbs and going do, 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 do.
Instead, what we actually get is waking up to a lot of talking to set the scene, then a tutorial foreshadowing what you will be doing most of the game, scanning. You start the game by scanning things, and after you're done scanning, agency is taken away from you yet again, and you're back to twiddling your thumbs for another 12 minutes until you're thrown on the planet.
You know what, Dantix, I'm surprised that you have not had Shepard play Far Cry 3 and then have him play Far Cry 6, because I think he and his friends would have a big blast ripping apart Far Cry 6, because Far Cry 6, well, it absolutely deserves and needs to be ripped apart. It is the first Far Cry game where, I mean, Far Cry has always had that stupid cliche of having your allies betraying you at the last minute, but Far Cry 6 is the first game where I wanted to absolutely annihilate my own side within seconds of meeting them. I didn't play the game, but I watched the gameplay, and I immediately disliked all of them. This leader is a woman. Cool. This leader is also a woman. Cool. Hey, we finally got our first male leader, and he's a literal eunuch. Not only was he emasculated, he's a literal eunuch. So, yeah.
And you're back to twiddling your thumbs for another 12 minutes until you're thrown on the planet. Immediately you can scan things again for a bit before your first real combat encounter, over 30 minutes after character creation. An absolutely insane amount of time considering that this is around 3% of the game's total length. That doesn't...
It needs to be watched before you truly start. A whole 3%, that much before combat begins? Wow.
Sound like much, but the game is huge and bloated, and the average gamer needs to be hooked within the first couple of minutes, and even after 30, Andromeda has yet to provide an adequate hook, and you're still in tutorial mode without a reason to care. Now, in the same time span in Mass Effect 1, Jenkins has been murdered, Nihilus has been murdered, you've met a hot badass soldier, you've been introduced to the badass villain, you've seen a kilometer-tall spaceship launch off a planet like it was nothing, you've seen humans being somehow turned into machine zombies, you've had to fight off Terminator death robots, and...
Yeah, I will say that if Andromeda was my first Mass Effect game, I very likely would not have been impressed enough to bother playing any other Mass Effect game. I'm actually, upon the 1-year anniversary after the release of Mass Effect Andromeda, 5/7 of all the players, according to BioWare's own tracking, 5/7 of all the players had not even finished the campaign. I was one of them. The campaign was that disinteresting. Whereas Mass Effect 1, by the time I reached the Dragon's Teeth, I still could not stand the third person view. I didn't like how the combat was handled, and I was desperately looking for a way to make it first person, only to find out that there was no such option. But the story made up for it. I was gripped. I needed to know more. I needed to know what that big ship was about. I needed to know what those cybernetic zombies were all about. I wanted to know if this Ashley girl was seeing anybody, etc., etc.
Spaceship launch off a planet like it was nothing. You've seen humans being somehow turned into machine zombies. You've had to fight off Terminator death robots. And you've been introduced to an alien technological mystery that makes you special. All the while trying to figure out why everything is happening in the first place. This is a hook, one delivered 20 years ago. Yes, it has been that long. Now, some would argue the best moments in Mass Effect 1 were discovering that Sovereign...
Basically, the golden age of games were when they were made by men for men. It's as simple as that. Women were a tiny minority of gamers when Mass Effect 1 was made. And unfortunately, there are some meatheads, including and including my two brothers, who only care about fast action pacing and not story. So they'd rather play Call of Duty than Mass Effect, which is kind of heartbreaking because this has got a gripping story and they won't even give it a chance.
Terminator death robots, and you've been introduced to an alien technological mystery that makes you special. All the while trying to figure out why everything is happening in the first place. This is a hook, one delivered 20 years ago. Yes, it has been that long. Now, some would argue the best...
Oh, and by the way, female gamers are still a deep minority. The number seems bigger because the powers that be have inflated the number by including bullcrap games like Candy Crush and other phone app games and call them gamers. They're not gamers. Real gamers are the people who sit on their butts in front of a big screen, and play on either a PC or a PlayStation or an Xbox. Those are gamers, not phone app users.
Years ago. Yes, it has been that long. Now, some would argue the best moments in Mass Effect 1 were discovering that Sovereign is not a ship controlled by Saren, rather is a Reaper controlling Saren. This reveal happens after potentially shooting a fan favorite ally and right before losing one of your crew again. This moment on Vermire happens around 10 to 15 hours into the game. 10 to 15 hours before you're given crucial information that the Reapers are planning to attack this cycle, and the danger is far more than thought. This is what I call information restraint. Letting the player discover this is a major moment. Your heart starts...
Oh, and yeah, damn right.
Saren. This reveal happens after potentially shooting a fan favorite ally and...
I had actually forgotten what it was like for you to personally execute Rex. Even Dantix didn't bring it up. He only showed the part where Ashley shoots him in the butt, supposedly. But I wish Shepard remained this strong.
Right before...
With one little whack, he can knock Rex over. The guy must weigh 500 to 1,000 pounds. He's a walking two-legged turtle crocodile mix. And here we are knocking him down. And, oh, man, that is one tough mofo. One little melee attack and he can knock a husk on his ass. And yet, Mass Effect 3 rolls around and even your heavy melee, and the bad guy steps back a little bit, but he stays staying on his feet. I was disgusted by how cybernetic Shepard of the third game was a weakling compared to fully organic Shepard was in this game. Which is why in my headcanon and in a fanfiction story that I'm going to be writing soon, he's basically a mutated superhuman who can heal faster and is surprisingly stronger despite having no cybernetics at all. He's, I wouldn't say Deadpool, but we'll have to read it and find out.
This reveal happens after potentially shooting a fan favorite ally and right before losing one of your crew again. This moment on Vermire happens around 10 to 15 hours into the game. 10 to 15 hours before you're given crucial information that the Reapers are planning to attack this cycle, and the danger is far more than thought. This is what I call information restraint. Letting the player discover this is a major moment. Your heart starts racing, you want to push forward a lot faster. A comparable moment in Andromeda is when you realize the Kett are biologically changing other races into more Kett, like the Borg, but far less threatening or impactful. In fact, this reveal is almost inconsequential.
I will say that the scanning tool on the Omni tool, the scanner on the Omni tool, we desperately needed that in the original games. It would have saved so much time and trouble. And that's another reason why I despise prequel games. I mean, technically, Andromeda is a bit of a prequel because it starts before the start of Mass Effect 2, and so all these jump jets and scanning tools, where the hell were they when we needed them in the second and third games? It's disgusting. Newer technology in an older story. That is such BS. And yeah, the Ket were way too generic and boring to look at and disgusting to look at for me to really care, for me to feel intimidated. But yeah, I definitely wanted to stop them from making us as ugly as them.
Push forward a lot faster. A comparable moment in Andromeda is when you realize the Ket are biologically changing other races into more Ket, like the Borg, but far less threatening or impactful. In fact, this reveal is almost inconsequential as it changes absolutely nothing about your mission and what you need to do. This happens about 15 to 20 hours into the game if you absolutely rush it and skip a lot of the side content. This is big reveal territory, but it fails to land as rush it and
hold on. Let's see. Estimate 95. How old was the Ungaran people? Estimate 95.
and skip a lot of the side content. This is big reveal territory, but it fails to land as the Ket themselves look about as threatening as a toddler spitting out his dummy and waddling away. But if we put the bad writing aside, this reveal happens.
You know, the ending, I saw it on somebody else's playthrough. It does not have the catharsis factor at all. When Sovereign blew up, sheer catharsis was felt all over. But this guy, his death was so generic and uninteresting. I absolutely wanted to cut his head off and use that loop on his head to as a convenient way to, well, raise it to a mast, have it hanging by a mast. That would have been cool.
Much sooner in Andromeda, about a third of the way into the story, whereas the reveal in Mass Effect 1 is towards the end of the game. In Mass Effect 1, with this new information, we are pushed to stop Saren as fast as possible to stop an imminent Reaper invasion. The pace drastically picks up as your heart hits your chest and you feel the high stakes. In Andromeda, we take this information and do absolutely nothing with it for another 50% of the game. Back to slowly trotting around the galaxy. It's only towards the end of the game do the Ket play a part, and then we have to defeat their leader in a standoff that was actually fairly decent. I remain to this day adamant that the best part of Andromeda were its final missions, where everyone you've brought together aids you in taking the Ket down. This also highlights my point. Why do we need to play the entire game to get to its best part? We finish strong, but we also start incredibly slow. For those with patience and we
Hold on, who are they talking to? Your connection serves me. Oh. Yeah, and of course the main character is written to be a clueless idiot, like I said, who walks into traps, and I can't stand playing that kind of character. That's one of the reasons why I couldn't stand playing the Prince in Fable 3. He's clueless at certain times and drives me nuts. Be intelligent. And this scene right here looks clearly ripped off from the giant Citadel relay entrance at the end of Mass Effect 3, which in itself has its own problems, but I already explained that in the other video, in the response version of that video that ripped it apart. So it's kind of a double whammy. Still, the Andromeda Initiative is completely boned because not only has the Scourge and the Ket claimed many of our numbers, but what's left of our number. Let's see, the Scourge killed many of our people, the Ket have killed many of our people, and we've killed many of our own people because somehow we can't stand dissenting opinions, apparently. And what's left almost consists entirely of rainbow people, and those don't exactly reproduce, let alone create good humans. So in the end, yeah, the Andromeda Initiative is doomed to extinction, so that's probably all the better reason why there's no sequels to Andromeda. So, yeah.
My point. Why do we need to play the entire game to get to its best part? We finish strong, but we also start incredibly slow. For those with patience, Andromeda can be good, but the problem is we shouldn't need patience. I see patience as a sandwich. We have the bread, starting strong, we have the filler, and then we have more bread at the end. So the bad pacing isn't there to lead into a big payoff in Andromeda. The bad pacing is there because of bad decisions. One of which was the idea of making each planet have an open world feel to it, which drastically increases how long it takes to do anything meaningful. And it also cuts back the amount of handcrafted missions. Most areas felt dull and empty, and doing even the most basic side missions seemed to take forever. If I'm being ultra critical, Mass Effect 1's
That's another reason why Mass Effect will always beat Skyrim, in my opinion, because Skyrim is a big, empty world, while Mass Effect crams a lot of content into a smaller area, which I think is better. Don't get me wrong. I will still say that Alien vs. Predator 2, the 2001 game, is far better than the 2010 game, because the 2010 game makes everything feel claustrophobic and there's very little lore compared to the second game. So you need a balance of space and lore and content, but Andromeda has too much of one thing and way too little of another.
feel to it, which drastically increases how long it takes to do anything meaningful. And it also cuts back the amount of handcrafted missions. Most areas felt dull and empty, and doing even the most basic side missions seemed to take forever. If I'm being ultra critical, Mass Effect 1's handcrafted missions could have used some work, some did drag on, but this was fixed in Mass Effect 2 and 3. But the difference was that every mission felt unique and every area immersed you in. I can't say the same about Andromeda. Andromeda even sometimes wastes your time in ways that shouldn't be wasted. For example, not letting you open a door you know very well can be opened until after everyone finishes talking. Now, while exploring these open, mostly
On one hand, yeah, I don't like having to wait until a long-winded motor mouth stops talking for a door to open. But on the other hand, I can't stand it when we accidentally take a step too far and they get interrupted by somebody else who's talking, because I might miss out on some important information. And it's even worse when two people are overlapping their talk. I mean, two people are talking to you about completely different things, and they don't say "excuse me" because they're both scripted to speak at the same time, and then I definitely can't hear what they're saying, and that also pisses me off.
until after everyone finishes talking. Now, while exploring these open, mostly empty worlds, or everyone
Basically, I think what needs to be desperately added to a role-playing game is a quick shut up button. A character's talking, I should be able to hit a certain key on the keyboard that simply has the character say shut up, and they'll shut up. Especially because I'm the guy in charge, and yet they don't. In games like Andromeda, they don't listen or respect you at all. Or Battlefield 4 is another excellent example. You're the guy in charge, supposedly, but the only thing you can do is point at where your guys are going to shoot, even though they're not really hitting anybody at all. And they continue to have their verbal arguments, and you do not have the ability to order them to shut up and, focus on the mission.
not letting you open a door you know very well can be opened until after everyone finishes talking. Now, while exploring these open, mostly empty worlds, or completing missions, you'll spend most of your time with your scanner out, like I mentioned before. Even simple things like activating monoliths takes forever, and you're forced to look around for glyphs and solve simple puzzles, which gets tedious because you're doing it every single time. Something that would have been a simple button press in the trilogy now takes 5 minutes or more. The first major mission on Eros requires you to do these puzzles 3 times, then enter the Remnant Underground and do even more mindless scanning. It's just a massive time sink for something that doesn't need to be. Not to mention,
I think it's called stalling. The game is stalling to waste your time, to make you feel like you've played a lot longer than you actually have, because it's just so empty. So they waste your time with complex puzzles.
scanning. It's just a massive time sink for something that doesn't need to be. Not to mention that if there is combat, it's yet again another hold the line sequence. So stepping back,
And what pisses me off about most hold the line sequences is that you're not allowed to shoot down the helicopters or gunships or whatever brings in these troops, the troop transports. Even Call of Duty is guilty of this. One moment there's an Mi-24 HIP helicopter dropping troops off. You can shoot it down in one mission, but in the next mission they're completely invincible. You can unload a dozen RPGs into it and it will not go down. And I do hate I hate it when that happens. I mean, why do they bother giving you access to RPGs if they're not going to let you shoot down the gunship? Why do they bother giving you access to Cobra missiles in this game if you're not allowed to shoot down the transport that's about to drop the Ket off? Come on, people. Let me shoot them down. It's fun shooting down aerial targets.
When you finally get a chance to engage in combat, overall, the combat systems are good. Your weapons and powers are great. Yet again, another hold the line sequence. So stepping back, when you finally
Been too long since I played, so I need to read that. Shots, burn enemies, and do extra keeps it currently like
finally get a chance to engage in combat, overall, the combat systems are good. Your weapons and powers are great, and some argue that Andromeda's combat was an upgrade to Mass Effect 3's already strong systems. The combat itself isn't the problem, rather, its pacing is. You see, for some reason, in the open worlds, Andromeda uses the hold your position and deal with waves of enemies formula far too often. Many combat encounters boil down to holding an area and waiting for the waves to spawn. Your first combat encounter on Eros is a hold the line encounter against the Keth dropship, then your next right after is hold the line against the Remnant. Then after you solve your next puzzle,
and it's too bad they couldn't spawn at the same time so they could kill each other off, because that would have been cool, I think. I love three-way battles. Watching the two enemy factions kill each other off, that's fun. Doesn't happen often enough. But the enemy suddenly showing up for no reason, that feels super contrived. And I remember the first time I played, in fact, it was the only time I played, when I first played Andromeda, I actually waited and waited forever, and I had to restart because the enemy wave failed to spawn. So the deactivation sequence, the thing I started, kept loading forever and ever because the enemy wave never appeared.
boil down to holding an area and waiting for the waves to spawn. Your first combat encounter on Eros is a hold the line encounter against the Keth dropship, then your next right after is hold the line against the Remnant. Then after you solve your next puzzle, you're taking out Remnant and holding the line against more Keths. Later on, after scrubbing the atmosphere, you fight yet another hold the line to acquire Drax, in a conversation that feels so damn childish.
That fight was fun.
You're telling me?
You could really handle yourself, kid.
Why is everyone so damn chummy? But that's a separate...
And that right there, you know, people praise Andromeda. The brown nosers who praise Andromeda say that Drac is super cool, and those who don't like the game but don't necessarily hate it, they praise it for Drac. I don't like Drac either. Drac feels like a wannabe Rex without the cool, wise grandpa feel or uncle feel. Instead, it feels like a man who's old but never really grew up, and he just, I don't know. Plus, I don't really like that bony goatee of his. It's startling to look at.
Handle yourself, kid.
Why is everyone so damn chummy? But that's a separate issue. Why are we fighting waves in Mass Effect?
Everyone feeling chummy is because the writers of Andromeda were basically the modern Hollywood Marvel writers. They just don't know how to write good stories.
But that's a separate issue. Why are we fighting waves in Mass Effect? The game series that traditionally had you fighting your way through handcrafted areas and always moving forward in order to reach an objective that only very rarely had you defending an area. And when it does,
Oh man, this is what there are many things I despise. There's very few things I despise about Mass Effect 2, and one of them is the lack of diplomacy. I know I've said that before, but it's worth saying again because I don't like killing pretty girls, and Mass Effect 2 and 3 made all the girls pretty. So here's you are killing an engineer, but I'm glad you do melee her because I like to pretend I only knocked her out. And plus, I felt like I was the only guy who remembered the big picture. Why are we killing mercenaries when we need them alive? Oh, but they're mercenaries, they're baggages. First off, being a mercenary isn't bad in and of itself. Second, have you forgotten that the Reapers are coming? And when the Reapers arrive, we're going to need everybody alive to fight them. A dead mercenary is useless.
why are we fighting waves in Mass Effect? The game series that traditionally had you fighting your way through handcrafted areas and always moving forward.
And her fall animation was kind of funny, kind of cute.
Had you fighting your way
Boop. Poor girl. Stupid girl.
Through handcrafted areas and always
And yeah, in response to the feminist bitches who basically force us to kill so many girls in the name of equality, the least you can do is make them ugly, because girls who are evil and hostile like this in real life, 99% of the time are butt ugly. Make the hot girls good and make the ugly girls bad. Make the bad girls ugly. And leave the hot girls on the good side.
That's a separate issue. Why are we fighting waves in Mass Effect? The game series that traditionally had you fighting your way through handcrafted areas and always moving forward in order to reach an objective that only very rarely had you defending an area. And when it does, they're usually set pieces. Andromeda somehow makes waiting for enemies the norm in its missions, and it's yet another time bloat. Combat is one of the best things about Andromeda, but the pacing ruins it. Another great thing about Andromeda though is the galaxy map and its visuals. No matter how beautiful the transitions are though, it slows down an already incredibly slow game. The trilogy's transitions are much faster and snappier, like there's no loading. You can't say the same about Andromeda. What takes a second in Mass Effect takes multiple here.
And instead of a robot telling you that you found something, we have the lovely Irish Christian lesbian girl telling you it all.
I found something.
Does anybody remember that meme where somebody's flying the ship around in circles and then playing that part where Miranda and you are going back and forth across the fuselage? It's footage taken from the Mass Effect 2 after you go through the red relay, the Omega relay. That was pretty funny.
Let's add to the fact that major decisions like choosing scientists or military for an outpost you just spent hours making viable had no actual consequence. So now you have bad pacing that has zero payoff. Why did they spend so long making a planet habitable and finding a perfect site for habitation if
Not only was I super disappointed that, choosing science post proved nothing at all, and so it's more logical to choose a military post, which in the end doesn't change anything either. I am also disgusted at how we don't even bother to try to salvage the abandoned bases. We waste more resources building a new base instead of saving resources by salvaging the abandoned bases. And why have one base or the other when we could have both instead? Really populate the area, but no, the abandoned base remains abandoned. Ton of resources completely wasted. It's heartbreaking and annoying at the same time.
the choices I make mean Ned Diddley Squat Flanders? If you rush through, you can get to this part in about 4 to 8 hours after you restore the vault on EOS. Nothing happens after the choice, so you have to assume the early choice will have some kind of payoff at the end, and it doesn't. My suspicion is that gaining AVP points were instead tied to your choice of science, military, or commerce outpost before they decided to pull the plug on that idea. Now you can just choose whatever upgrades you want, and that means that the choice of those outposts don't mean anything. You have to play anywhere from 25 to 70 plus hours or more to finish the game, only for decisions like outposts not to matter in the slightest. In the same time frame, you could release the Rachni Queen and find her again in Mass Effect 3, you could kill Rex, recruit Morden, delete the cure data, sabotage the cure, and shoot more.
Recruiting Morden is not exactly a choice, unlike the other things you chose.
Rex, recruit Morden, delete the cure data, sabotage the cure, and shoot Morden with the same gun he originally gave you in Mass Effect 2, all in the same time frame. These are not exaggerations in the slightest. The whole journey feels far more stretched out and far less epic. Even the openings were different. Let's take a look at...
I do hate to interrupt the build up here that you're making, but this part reminds me, and I have to say it before I forget it because out of sight, out of mind, unfortunately, affects me very much. Have Shepard play with mods. Have him check out mods like the retrofit mods and the return mods, where a character returns from the dead. Sadly, the two mod makers who made the retrofits and the returns they're at each other's throats. So their mods are deliberately designed to not be compatible at all. And so we can only hope and pray that somebody makes a mod that patches those two mods so that they are compatible. But yeah, have Shepard play all the retrofit mods and have him play again the return mods. Like have Morden return. See what he says about it. In fact, putting aside that crappy, it was all a dream crap that you decided to throw in on your last episode, I think that would be the perfect explanation as to why Morden is still alive, even though the grand majority of the Shepard Plays series is after the Reaper War is over.
Shoot Morden with the same gun he originally gave you in Mass Effect 2, all in the same time frame. These are not exaggerations in the slightest. The whole journey feels far more stretched out and far less epic. Even the openings were different. Let's take a look at the opening Andromeda music.
Probably the only thing that's good about Andromeda, decent music. Yeah, except the Milky Way is still 90% unexplored. So, yeah, moving to Andromeda. It's I came, I saw, I want to go back.
Now, let's compare that opening to Mass Effect 1 and tell me you're not more pumped to kick ass as Shepard.
Humanity needs a hero, and Shepard's the best we've got.
I'll make the call.
I love those kinds of intros. They cut short and then they give you the title, like Top Gun.
The Arcturus Prime relays.
This is a lot to do with how long it took to get started, but as I've shown, it's an ongoing problem with Andromeda. So to conclude, every decision made in Andromeda's development, from how the game starts, to how information is introduced, to how combat functions, to exploration of the ground and map, are all designed unintentionally to waste your time. For a game with much weaker writing than the original trilogy, with characters that aren't as strong, with an overall weak...
That is saying the least. If you have any idea how many times I wanted to put a knife or a bullet inside Liam's gut and then scalp him just to get rid of that stupid hair, good gravy. In fact, I'm surprised you didn't have Ashley or some other character rip him apart for his hair. Because I remember you had Ashley ripping apart one of the characters from Veilguard because of her stupid hat. And I admit, it does look super stupid. And her peg leg.
Are all designed unintentionally to waste your time. For a game with much weaker writing than the original trilogy, with characters that aren't as strong, with an overall weaker narrative, this horrible pacing is the primary reason why so many people struggle to get through Mass Effect Andromeda, let alone start it. So thanks for watching, and let me know below what you think. I'm keen to know if you agree, and if not, I'm keen to know why. So until next time, ciao friends.
And that, dear friends, is Dantix and giving us his grand opinion, and me giving my response. So please give him a like, and give me a like, subscribe to both of us, and do check out his Shepard Play series. Those are awesome. Hilarious. And dear Dantix, if you're still watching, please, please, please don't forget my recommendations, or, yeah. I really do hope you check out the other games that I mentioned, and I do hope you continue Shepard Plays series. Those are awesome. And do a podcast or two. I'd love to join in. So, ciao.